So you take a look at this, the first thing we always need to be thinking about, even if it doesn't ask you to write it out, you should at least be thinking about what is the parent function. Now the parent function is what we're left with if we strip away any transformations. The minus 3 is a transformation. And so we're just going to be doing 2 to the power of x for the parent. The minus 3 as a transformation, notice that one moves it to the right 3. I know it moves it to the right 3 because it's in with x. If it's in with x, remember it moves it in the x direction, and minus always goes to the. Now, since I know that much, I now can know where the asymptote is, because this thing was not moved up or down at all. And if it's not moved up or down, then we know that our asymptote's at 0. So this is that thought process you're doing as you do this type of problem. Now, when actually making the graph, whether you had to write that stuff out or not, you had to know it in order to make the graph. So the first thing we do, draw the asymptote on the graph. And so we draw that dotted line in on the graph. Now sometimes people think, why? It's just over the x-axis. Yeah, but if you don't draw it in, then you don't know if it was supposed to be the x-axis or if you just forgot. So I always draw that dotted line in so I know where it is. So step 1, drawing your asymptote. After that, the first point is always up 1. But notice it's not here this time. That's where it would normally be if it wasn't moved over. So how do you get that first point? Remember, it's moved to the right 3. So if you know that it normally starts there, I can then take that point and move it to the right 3. So I go over 3 and plot that first point 1 away from the asymptote. As long as you know, always start 1 above the asymptote, these graphs get a lot easier. Because once you have that first point, then it's just a matter of following the same pattern as y equals 2 to the x. Notice, once I get this first point, I don't need all that other stuff. All I need is that it's 2 to the x. And 2 to the x means double your height as you go to the right. So, where I started up 1, 1 times 2 is 2. That 2 times 2 is 4. That 4 times 2 is 8. We're always just doubling our heights each time. If I kept going, I'd be going up 16. And then I'd be going up 32. And then I'd be going up 64. I'm always just doubling whatever that last height was. Now, if I'm doubling it as I go to the right, that means I'm cutting them in half as I go to the left. And so I take my 1 that I started up, and then I cut that in half, then I cut that in half, and so on. And then once you've plotted those, you draw your curve. This is, step by step, how you're making each one of these curves. So if you had trouble on that assignment last night, this is what you're going to have to be doing and how you approach each of these problems. So yesterday we learned about what graphs of exponentials would look like, but that was a little departure because we got to work in some of the graphing and stuff along the way too. But recently we've been looking a lot at investment strategies and different things that deal with investing and monetary growth, compounding interest, stuff like that. And so that's where we're going to focus most of our attention today, is on the compounding interest kind of stuff. Now, to start with, I want to give you a little bit more information about some of these different things that are out there. So today, it takes, okay, now that we know what stocks are and mutual funds are and all that kind of stuff, how do we use those to head towards things like retirement planning and stuff like that? The key things when it comes to retirement planning is that there's 2 main retirement types. The first one that you see here is a pension. Pensions are beautiful things if you have one. However, they aren't nearly as common as they once were. Pensions used to be the norm. A company would want to reward people for spending their entire career with them. And then they discovered, hey, these people live a long time. We have to keep paying them. This is tough for our bottom line. And so a lot of places have ruled them out. So a pension just means that your employer guarantees you a salary after you retire. So like if you work with us for 30 years, we'll pay you $1,000 a month for the rest of your life. That sort of thing. That's a pension. That's a good deal if you get it. But most of them have been phased out, hence it's very rare. What most companies have gone to instead is an IRA, the Individual Retirement Arrangement. A lot of people call them individual retirement accounts. but that's actually just where like it gets stored at the bank or something. Technically, it's called an individual retirement arrangement. And what it is it's an investment account like you would have of any other investment account that you could open up and buy stocks and all that kind of stuff, except that these have certain tax advantages to them. You get to determine your own investment strategy with these, or to say it another way, you have to determine your own investment strategy with these. They aren't going to necessarily do it for you. You have to actually think it through and plan how you're going to be investing your money. Now, if you use one of these, though, because it comes with tax advantages, you have to leave the money in there until you are at least age 59 and a half. And then you can start pulling the money out. But if you tried to pull the money out before then, there's penalties. They'll be like, well, you told us you're going to leave it there until you're 59 and a half, so now you have to pay this much extra. You don't want to do that. If you put it in there, you're leaving it in there until you're retiring, which is assumed to be after 59 and a half, hence why they chose that particular age. Now, when we talk tax advantages, there's two main different types. The most common one that you will have heard of is the 401k. Now, 401k does not mean 401,000. You would think so, because we're dealing with money and, it's like 401k. That kind of sounds like we're trying to say 401,000, but no. 401k is actually, if you were really, really, really bored and wanted to go read the tax code, you would find the law that allows this retirement account to exist in section 401k, subsection K. So it's in section 401 of the tax code, subsection K. That's what 401k really means. Is that necessary to know? No. But I don't want you thinking it means 401,000 for some weird reason either. Now, what the 401k does is you're actually investing with pre-tax money. So before you get paid, your employer takes out a certain amount of money out of your check and puts it into the retirement account for you. By it not passing through your hands, the government does not take out their piece. So it actually helps you tax-wise that year. So like you put that money in the IRA, you're not taxed on it. This is a good thing if you would have been taxed on it otherwise. The downside is that when you retire and start collecting it, they're going to tax it then. The government will always get their money. They will always tax you on it. You know that. It's just a matter of whether they let you invest it and then tax it, or whether they tax it and then let you invest it. That second one, that's what the Roth IRA is. The Roth IRA is where you get paid, the government takes out their share, and then you go and invest the money. But because the government already taxed it, they don't tax it again. So when you're retired and you pull out money from your Roth IRA, you get to keep all of it. They aren't taking anything off the top or anything like that. I know there's still probably tons of questions about investing, retirement, all sorts of this just money management stuff. And so because of that, and because there's so many different things, I'm actually going to be giving you some independently oriented time today for you to explore. I'm going to give you some time to go and investigate questions on your own. Now, these are about like finances, investing, retirement, things like that. If you're looking at cars, it better be because you're curious what this car will be worth in 30 years, that sort of thing, right? Not what can I buy right now. I'm not interested in you doing your research for what you're going to be buying tomorrow or something like that. We're talking like, what is the deal with all this money stuff? Because there's so much of it, and it's something that we don't teach enough. And so when we do teach it, let's get as much mileage out of it as we can. So there's going to be a couple of different things you do. You're going to be having a computer. You'll be able to get on, just explore freely on your own. When you are going through that, you're bound to come up with a ton of questions. Well, of course, you'll be trying to answer them through your search, but I also will have a Google Doc created where you can go ahead and type those questions into there. And so you can submit questions there, and I'll be trying to answer them as we go during class, and also work it into lessons in the next coming days, things like that, so we can try to answer any of those pressing things, especially the stuff that comes up multiple times. And then at the end of class, with about 10 minutes left in class, I'm going to open up an assignment for you. And in this assignment, you'll be asked to give an answer to 2 questions, and you'll actually have to write out your responses. Yes, actually writing in math class. The first question will be, what is one thing you learned today about investing? And the second question is going to be, what is one question you still have about investing? And so this is going to be information that we can then continue to work with and relate to others as we're going. You can see the URL down here at the bottom of the Google Doc, where you can submit any of those questions as you go.